Hey guys, Tobias here. Just wanted to take this opportunity to talk to a couple of friends of mine. I've got Jay and Blake Bachochin here. They are in an upcoming documentary called Finding Jay, which is about investigating anomalous phenomena in the southeastern Kettle Moraine here in Wisconsin. And they'll also be featured speakers at the upcoming Pennsylvania Bigfoot camping adventure, which is pretty exciting. Father and son team talking together.
The first of its kind.
Yeah, see, there you go. And so why don't we start off? Now, some of these people probably know who you are, some of them don't. So why don't you guys just tell me a little bit about yourselves, why you got into this, and what you find so interesting about it.
So, my name is Blake, and I first got out with my dad is when he started going out. So, I was about 5, and it was 2013 when he started going out. So, when I was 5, he was going out, and it was really fun because I loved going out there, the adventure, the nature. I love playing video games. It's a really hobby. I know that changes the subject, but I like going out in nature, but there's also other things I like to do, and I love to draw, and that's a lot about myself.
Well, that's good. That's good. And actually, he really didn't have a choice of going out back in 2013 because, Dad's going to take him out there because...
I wanted to.
Yeah, that's what he says. But to get out in nature,
Yeah.
and that's what we do. I've always had a fascination with the paranormal, ever since, the Creature Feature days back in the day, and having my own UFO sightings back when I was about a little younger than Blake. Started my own paranormal group of investigating ghosts in 2007, and in 2013, never believed in Bigfoot. I believed in Bigfoot in, a good movie or a good campfire story, but it wasn't until I went out there that had an experience that I thought there was more. I wanted to validate what I heard that initial night, and been doing it for 5 years, and
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Jay, when you say that you didn't necessarily believe in Bigfoot, despite being a UFO investigator and doing some ghost hunting and things like that, do you want to elaborate maybe on what some of the doubts were that you had about Bigfoot's existence?
Yeah, basically it's everybody researching for all these 50 some odd years of back then it wasn't called Bigfoot, it was Wildman or Sasquatch. Where's the body? That's the first thing I'm thinking.
Okay.
Everybody's out there, and you got hunters out there. There should have been a body by now, or a really good photograph or video, especially in today's society with that. But nobody's ever found it. It's always
no one's got a clear picture, and there's only one film.
Yeah, what do you guys think of the Patterson-Gimlin?
I don't know. I kind of believe it because it's so back, like when they were a lot younger, when the cameras weren't that good. There was no photo editing.
Oh, it was all on
yeah,
reels. That was physical tape.
Yeah, that was all. So I want to say it's real. I do.
And I'm going to go on the record too and say it's real because they've broken that film down so much, and they can't. There's somebody that's come out that said that they've actually wore the suit, but they've never been able to supply the suit.
No, of course not. It's all just tall tales.
It's all tales. So they couldn't prove it was fake, as they can't prove it's real. But I'm going to go with my instinct of watching it and studying it that it's real.
But for them to plan it would be really weird, because I don't know how you can really plan that. You're just riding, I think, a horse, right?
They were horseback riding, and so sort of the story behind that is they were actually looking for Bigfoot, and they had heard somebody had told them
about that area.
Yeah,
because Roger Patterson
wanted a sighting.
Yeah, he loaned out that camera. I don't think he ever paid for it, but he actually used it to go try to film it because that's where some prints were at.
Yeah, and so they were looking for Bigfoot. And some people like to use that as a way to discredit the sighting, but I think that if, we're going to declare that evidence is dubious just because somebody found what they were looking for, then at no point is anybody ever going to be satisfied with any paranormal investigation. That kind of seems like a catch-22.
Right, and honestly, that's what I always say. Why am I going out there? I'm not trying to prove to the world that Bigfoot exists. I'm doing this for myself and anybody who's willing to listen, or I can help educate them with, and that's why I came out with the documentary.
Exactly.
More of as an educational tool, and even for Blake or for any of my family members, it's their dad is looking for something, and they're not sure. I mean,
exactly. I understand what you mean, and at the beginning, before I was going out there, I went out there to search for it, but I had my doubts, and because when you start searching for something you've never really talked about and you never really thought about, it's something like, is it real? Like,
Sure.
what are we looking for?
Of course.
That like, it's something that I think that I'm going, like he said, I'm going out there not to prove to everyone that he's real. I'm going out there because it's a fun hike with my dad or anyone else I'm going out with, and it's just fun out of all, even though we might be searching for something that you have no idea what it is.
So it's almost like it's more of a personal journey for you guys,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
Yeah.
So, to kind of follow up on that, I guess. So you had both had some doubts prior to your investigations and the Kettle Moraine, and ultimately this documentary. Would you mind telling us a little bit about what might have changed your mind?
I'll field this one. Basically, it's I have listened to plenty of reports, and I think that's reports or encounters, and these encounters were happening to me coincidentally, and so now I'm taking somebody else's encounter that looked like a chimpanzee after I saw what looked like a chimpanzee. It kind of goes hand in hand that way. I mean, you've heard of rock throws in the middle of the woods being thrown out, or seeing beady red eyes. I mean, again, having two other people with me, three of us seeing these red eyes that were self-illuminating. Again, we didn't see what was behind the eyes.
So this wasn't eye shine. It was somehow creating its own light.
Correct, and we know that, right? And we do know that if there wasn't really a moon out, but even if you have light in the in the sky, it's going to cause any animal to have a reflective light still. But these were like red.
Okay.
Yeah, like red. I don't have as many encounters with my dad because I did not go out as much as my dad.
In all fairness, he's a lot older than you.
Yes.
So, sorry.
No.
and
he hasn't done a night hike yet. He'll do his first night hike in Pennsylvania.
Yes, but with about like 50 people. Anyways, but a lot of my encounters was his first encounter hearing something loud. For example, a knock. And he heard a knock before, but this was no ordinary knock. And how come it isn't a ordinary knock?
Well, we really don't know. I mean, everybody...
everyone has their own thing.
And the thing is, everybody has seen Finding Bigfoot, or if you haven't, they would bang on trees or how... And I never really understood what that was all about either. I mean, it's kind of, you're ringing the dinner bell and making sure everybody can hear you knocking. I mean, I don't know, and I don't want to knock it, no pun. I don't want to knock that, but I really don't know, because all the different wood knocks that we've heard in different areas, different seasons, Blake, with Mary Marshall, with a slew of other people.
Other people, yeah.
But one of the big things is they almost all sound alike, meaning that a said Bigfoot would have to be carrying around the same type club and hitting the same type tree to get the same type, reverberation to make it sound that way. But I can't see that. So, one of my theories is, a working theory is, you know, what if it's a body part? You know how different tribes can talk with clicking. You know the
Sure.
clicking, or you know maybe it has something to do with a jaw,
Okay.
a hand slap, or something. Again, I don't know.
Right.
But one thing, I'm thinking, what if it isn't a club? What, like, I'm just saying, like, they could be just grabbing a stick but I think you have it the opposite. Because you're saying that this thing is not, like, you would have to hit it the same type of tree and with the same type of club or whatever.
Right.
And I'm thinking that if this thing is out there hitting trees, it knows the woods. It knows how delicate it has to be against a certain tree to make the same knot. Because, like, you can go against a big tree and go boom.
Right.
And
So this kid's smart, isn't he?
and a little tree, if you hit it soft enough, but you hit it loud enough, it's gonna have the same sound depending on where he hits it. Cause it's them, and it depends on, and they also know the forest well if they do, and if they do know the forest, they can know where echoes will come from and how they need to make it echo it to make it sound the same.
Sure.
Okay, the student becomes the teacher.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, he comes up with some really good, interesting theories, just like about the rock throws. I've had several rocks thrown at me from a certain distance, and with that being said, you know, if there's no snapshot, you know, a slingshot, that is somebody or something throwing rocks perfectly well. Blake did bring up one time that, you know, if we try to do that as people, how far would the rocks go if we tried to throw in between all the woods?
You would have to know the woods really well to be able to aim right through the trees.
Right. So why don't we give everybody a little bit of context for this?
Yes.
Do you guys have an example, sort of what you're talking about with the rock throwing?
Oh, this is when when I was 7, me and my dad, we were going out for a hike, and we decided, hey, let's throw some rocks out of the woods, see if we get a response.
And I was letting him do this because of a prior incident, which I'll explain right after for context. But go ahead.
I threw it. We got no response. So we're like, let's just keep walking on with the hike, you know, because like we're not gonna sit there forever, you know, and wait. And we kept walking, and then suddenly.
Yeah, it was the most bizarrest thing because we heard a bird call, which I do add some context into finding Jay.
I don't know.
But it literally sounded like a rock, the weight of a rock that came
Yes,
and
definitely.
landed about 15 feet away. And and I can almost still hear it kind of roll, like, you know, if you lobbed a rock,
And
the way it fell, it would be like, you know,
Sure.
like that little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So it didn't sound like there's no apple trees out there.
Right.
Whatever it was thrown. Again, we didn't see.
We couldn't
what
find
threw
it.
and we couldn't find it. We did look for.
We did look for it to see like how big was it, but we couldn't find it. And on top of that, it was so loud it could not have been a pine cone because pine cones were falling that season.
Sure.
But pine cones, they'll fall, they'll make a noise. But how loud that sound was,
Yeah, it was.
It did not sound like a pine cone at all.
Right. So that was one instance, but one of the bigger ones, again in the documentary, is when Sanjay and I were out there walking, and we kept hearing what sounded like acorns falling because it was in September, and but all of a sudden the sound of something falling vertical changed to horizontal in the way it was coming through the trees, and they kept coming at us, and pretty soon you were hearing rocks hit trees, so you knew it was a rock, and then it kind of stopped, and I got the big idea. This was before I told you to throw them out. Sorry, I made you bait, you know, later on to get a response.
Yeah.
But I figured I'm going to throw a rock out to see if I can solicit some sort of reply.
Oh,
And I threw this rock out, and all of a sudden a bunch of them just come from out of the woods,
I know.
and they land right in between,
Wow.
right between Sanjay and I. And again, perfect dead-on aim, and that's the problem that I have.
That's your and my problem, because like how you need, like I said, I'm sorry I'm saying this again, but like you need to know the forest well to aim like that, because like if it perfectly, because like usually even if you threw it as a human and it landed, they're not gonna know where it's gonna land.
Sure.
But if they all landed perfectly between it, like usually they would come from different places, but if they all just landed like this, I mean,
And that's
it's gotta be,
so I mean, who knows exactly what did it? And that's one of the things. And one of the things that people always ask me after is, why didn't I go out there? Well, I'm gonna tell you, I didn't care if it was a Bigfoot or a human or something.
Nah, you do not.
Getting hit. I don't know where these rocks are coming from, and I don't want to get pelted, because a week prior to that, I was out with Linda Godfrey, and we were out there, and she thought shaking a tree was a great idea, and I thought, why not? Let's solicit something. And she was done shaking the tree. I was recording her, but then when it was my turn, I turned my camera off. It always happens, and put it down, and I did the shaking of the tree. And she was standing out looking all around. She wasn't just directly looking at me. And I'm shaking this little sapling, not trying to break it, just shaking, and making it sounds like a silverback gorilla. And next thing I know, because I'm looking down, I don't want any of the little debris. Fresh trees, by the way.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm looking down at this pine cone. My sunglasses flipped over and fell down, and I'm looking down at my glasses next to a pine cone, because I felt, wow, that pine cone hit me, and I'm still shaking the tree. And I still, wow, and I finished up, and then Linda's looking around, nothing going on, and I'm holding my head, and she's like, what happened? I said, I don't know, I think I got hit in the head like Gilligan's Island, shaking a coconut tree, and a coconut fell on my head. And we looked for what was down there, which was my sunglasses and a little last year's pine cone, which really was featherweight. There was nothing to it. And I took my hat off, and sure enough, I had a bump on the side of my head, which was actually facing the side of the woods.
Right.
So, again, it was a high forest. We couldn't find these things.
Well, it's difficult to find things in any underbrush. I mean, there's
especially the mini rocks, like
yeah,
because like even
I don't know if this was mini though, because it hurt.
Right.
I know, but like it would probably, if I don't mean mini like in this, but I mean like mini as in like this, because like it even these kind of size rocks can still hurt you really badly, because wherever they're coming from, like it's still coming like a projectile.
Sure.
So
and this is a real
say?
forest that's going to have thick undergrowth. And actually, interestingly enough, this is a story that I believe Linda tells in her own words as well.
Yes.
The documentary. Yes. So there's independent corroboration for this one, which is really interesting, I think. So that was actually a really interesting piece of independent corroboration from Linda.
Yeah, I mean, it literally was. For sure. It was because of Linda was there, and she didn't see it happen. So she was looking around, but she was there to witness my pain and the bump. There was a physical mark.
Right.
Again, it's one of those things where people are going to say, "Did you find the rock?" No, I didn't find the rock. So how do I know it was a rock? All I know is it was hurting. So the week after, when I was with Sanjay, different area, and rocks were coming at me, you're going to see me go, yep, and I'm turning around and I'm kind of hightailing it out.
Sure.
And it's not to be a credible investigator, because a good investigator would go out there and charge out there and see what's thrown at you. But you know what? I don't want to get hurt.
Right. I mean, it's dangerous.
If something was throwing something at you, like if you ran towards it, now it's going to aim at you.
Yeah, I didn't want to get hit again, so I was.
Right. And then next time that's a concussion, or something more serious.
Yeah, and then
that's kind of what I had with Linda, because when it explains that in the documentary, I dropped her off, and I'd been to her house so many times, and I knew my way out. All of a sudden, I was like, I always want to say like Norman from On Golden Pond. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but anyway, it's irrelevant. I was actually driving, and I lost where I was.
Oh wow!
And all of a sudden, it was almost a come to of, where am I? And that's weird, because That's a sign. That's a sign of a
It's
concussion.
symptomatic, yeah.
So something of some weight that hit me in the head had to have caused that. That's all I know.
It's something
Right.
that and then you bait me into throwing a rock to see what happens.
I was right there with you. So.
I know. But if rocks are get thrown at us, then you would be charging me out of there.
And I would, because I always
You'd pick me up and run out of there.
family first.
Yeah.
But I've learned a lot since then with my techniques, and my techniques are no longer banging on trees, yelling, or throwing rocks out. I don't do that anymore.
Right. No, fair enough. And so now, if I am getting this right, and this is at least my assumption. Now, I freely admit I don't watch a lot of paranormal television, but it was always my understanding that Finding Bigfoot performed their investigations the way that they did because they were sort of operating under the assumption that that what they were looking for was an undiscovered primate species.
Correct.
But the thing.
Go ahead. Let them
Oh well, I was just going to say so. Now you say you don't investigate that way anymore using that particular methodology. Is that because you have your doubts about this being an undiscovered primate species?
100% not. The reason why I don't is because I don't know what that means. And by throwing rocks out could be a sign of aggression or a challenge to something. Same thing with the wood knocks. Is the wood knocks more letting somebody else know, letting another one of the beings know, a way of communication like a phone or a text.
Okay.
So that's the way I think of that. But that's the reason why I don't do it yet, because I don't know what I'm dealing with yet.
Sure. So you haven't ruled anything out.
Oh no, not
just
at all.
You're
Right.
more concerned with performing things that you don't know how they'll respond.
Correct.
Okay.
Because we don't know yet.
Right.
Like I said, Finding Bigfoot did it so that because you saw it on TV, that must be the way to do it.
Sure.
But by throwing rocks out, and getting hit with a rock, by being aggressive, I don't know.
Right. What's your take on it, Blake?
Finding Bigfoot, it's kind of, or just any Bigfoot show in general, it's hard to believe because, like, say in Finding Bigfoot, when they're going out alone, they're not going out alone. Because there's cameras on them, and when there's cameras shining, it's kind of hard for any animal to get near them because they're like walking like this, and like it seems like, of course, the content they're alone, but in reality they're with like maybe 2 more other people, and and maybe sometimes it's even one more person. So like they're not really alone.
So exactly.
Sure, that's a good point.
So
but that is the great point, because you have loads of producers out there making a TV show. So no, my way may not be their way, and I'm not saying one way is right or wrong.
Sure.
But I definitely believe that there's something out there. And again, when I was talking about naming the title Finding Jay, wasn't really a narcissistic tone of putting my name in the title. It's basically when I go out there, I will go out there and I call it fishing. And fishing meaning sitting in a john boat with a bobber and a worm, and just waiting. We get out there and we just see what is going to happen, and we wait. And I believe patience.
You're very patient.
Patient is trust, and that's what I think. So if anything happens around us, and we've had some things of different smells. You were there when we did that.
Yeah, we Emily and I had our own experiences, and if you're interested in those, you can find them in the feature that we wrote about it. That's on the website. But yeah, I mean, we did experience some interesting phenomena when we went out with you.
And again, we didn't know what was causing the smell or that light that you saw that was behind us.
There was even a tree knock. Actually.
There was actually a tree knock. So we really don't know that, but to me, that's getting to our little bay area, casting out, sitting and waiting, having anything around us happen, and then just being patient, not running off, not pulling out guns, and what are we going to do about it? Waiting for anything to come to us. So therefore, going back to it, it could be finding Tobias, finding Blake, finding Emily, finding Jay. That's how I see that.
I've never encountered a smell, but one thing that we've both encountered, I don't know if you have yet, but we find X's,
Interesting.
and sometimes it's human work. Or,
What kind of X's are you explaining?
Yeah.
I'm explaining like X's of trees.
Of two fallen trees together?
No, I'm not talking about those. There's two put together, like sticks, or like I mean not sticks, but like branches.
Long branches.
Yeah,
long
long
So
branches.
somebody has constructed
Yeah.
an X out
Yes,
of branches.
and sometimes humans come over. If it's right next to the side, there's a high chance it's human because
Sure.
they can just put it together. In nature, there can be animals that are chaining us down, and there can be like a thunderstorm or something. You just go like this, and then that's an X. But what makes an X different? What makes the strange X is the X that is put together, like from up high too. Like there will be sometimes where there's an X close to the top of a tree, and it's like it's so weird because I mean humans, they can just make an X by putting it to the side, but like an X out there up top, that lowers the percentage a lot of it being a human.
Here's what I kind of train Blake.
Sure.
When we are out on, we do the path, and anything off the side of the path, I throw in the 99.9%
Yeah, 99999.
chance it's done by nature or man-made.
Yeah.
Is how we do it.
Sure.
Now people say, well, you're going out in the woods. Why aren't you out trupsing through, the forest and get off the path? And I have a different theory about that too. Is I feel that the path is our street outside our house. As soon as we step foot off that path, they're in your yard. How do you feel if somebody is walking on the street, hold on a second, and actually steps into your yard? Now they're going a little further into your yard. Next thing you know, they're on your porch. You know what I mean? That it's a sign to me. I'm doing more of a respect thing by staying on the path, letting them come to me if they want to, and if not, no harm, no foul. We're not here to bug you. We do our nice nature hike and move on. But generally, I don't do a lot of traipsing off that unless there's any of the footprints or we're looking for, or that we came across.
Yeah, for
the
example,
X.
that
Yes, please.
shadow. Sorry, that shadow that we were talking about.
Right, the shadow.
That we wanted to see what it was.
And you have to do your due diligence
Yeah.
as an investigator to look at that. So there's a couple ways I approach going out there. Definitely non-threatening, but at the same time you have to get out and do your hi kitty, and do your due diligence of looking for that. We have found prints that were really close to the seeing the prints right next to the path that lead out. We need to get out, off the beaten path to actually see if those prints are, if they keep going or whatnot. So there's many different ways. It's just the way, again, I approach it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that's an interesting point, and it sounds like you are taking pains to be respectful, and if what you're dealing with is something of human or near human or beyond human intelligence, it does seem to me like some care should be taken to be respectful.
Well, and the thing
Exactly.
is, and honestly, the way I look at it is, been doing this over 5 years now.
Yep.
I still have my head on. I still have my life. I still have my story to tell. So maybe, and this honestly is the way I feel. Maybe I'm doing something right.
It seems
the
like
way I'm doing it.
The way you're doing it. Like other people, they might be going out there like showing their guns. They're like, hey, if you don't come out, I'm gonna shoot you. Something like that.
Yeah, well, we don't do that though.
Yeah, we don't.
No,
I know. I'm just saying there's hunters like that who do that.
Well, of course.
And we do it the respectful way.
Yeah, it's the way to do it.
I think respectful is the best way.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, certainly, because it really sounds like you're uncertain with what exactly you're dealing, which I think is intellectually honest, frankly. And not everybody takes that approach. There are a lot of people who are pretty convinced of what they're looking for. So that being the case, you know, if you don't mind speculating just a little bit, what do you think you might be dealing with?
You know, I'm kind of on the border in a lot of ways, and I'm sorry if this is going to be kind of all over the board
Oh, it's okay.
because there's really no clear-cut answer.
Of
Exactly.
course.
So I have to go back and say, is it possible that these beings, flesh and blood, are not? They don't live. They live longer than what we do. That's
Okay.
number one.
Is that possible?
Yeah. So we don't know. I mean, these things could be 900 years old. We don't know. But let's just say that for a second. It still doesn't explain some of their techniques to be looking at them but not looking at them, that they're so well cloaked. And I don't mean the whole predator cloaking thing, but they are literally standing in front of you and you can't see them. That's one of them. Number two, how is there just one footprint that people find and never anything else? Is that a hoax print? Is it a real print? They've been finding real one prints. Then, so, you know, I'm looking at this of saying it is almost supernatural. You know what I mean? In a way. So, I'm gonna go flesh and blood, kind of some ancient people. You know, and I'm saying maybe the first people. I don't know.
Sure.
That have just adapted well. That
When you say first people, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I cannot.
would you like to elaborate on the first people? Go ahead.
No, it's fine. You can
Okay. So I'm looking at it as maybe the first people that first people on Earth. You know, they've been around here this long.
Okay.
That maybe, you know, that caveman never really evolved. Maybe.
So early human ancestor.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But even so, have learned and adapted these abilities
Sure.
in the woods. You know, and have just adapted with the speed, the agility.
So a divergent evolution.
Of everything. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, did you?
I'm gonna bring up a point that might be a good point. I don't know.
Please do.
I
wanna
don't
hear
know.
it.
But you know, like back when George Washington was alive, I know they couldn't record, but they could write.
Yeah.
How come they never saw? How come they never saw anything? Like, and in the wars, they were out in the woods, in like wars, like in the American Revolution.
Well, we'll talk about Roosevelt and his.
Well, I was going to say there's some pretty interesting historical reports actually, and you can sort of trace
Yeah.
the history of hairy hominid sightings back, well, frankly, thousands of years.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and in this continent, you would want to look at some of the First Nations peoples. So there are certainly reports from almost every Native American tribe
Yeah.
and nation of sort of dealing with beings that was sort of matched that description. But
They
it's
call
not
it something different, though.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
But it's not just in North America either, because you can
Yeah.
look at the history of, say,
Like Tibet.
well,
Yeah.
absolutely, the Yeti, but even in like Great Britain, you know, you've got the Green Man of the Woods,
Right.
and you have these hairy wild men who were said to live in their forests, and so
Exactly.
it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Right, and that's what they say is that if you really wanted to look and research Bigfoot, you got to stop thinking of the word Bigfoot or Sasquatch,
Right.
and looking for, like you said, the Green Man. You've heard the Corn Man,
Yeah.
the Wild Man. You're thinking
Yeah.
of the Whoop-de-Doo Man.
I know.
But you know, basically,
I'm pretty sure Egypt even believed in this stuff back before that. I mean, it was rare, but some Egypt people believed the paranormal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because-
and if you look hard enough, and some people will say that this is just sort of an archetypal representation of our own connection to perhaps our primitive self, but there is in almost every culture of which I'm aware some sort of hairy hominid representation that'll find its way into their culture. You see it in mythology all of the time.
but again, you know, and again with mythology. And then you go back to the Native American, like here in southeast Wisconsin and
Yeah.
central, you have the Ho-Chunk tribe.
Mythology, though. Myth.
Well, that doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's not.
But that's
Based
what
on
I'm
truth.
saying is maybe,
Yeah.
but even so, they believe that it was more of a spirit. It was flesh and blood, but a spirit.
Sure.
So, again, these are the hard things because, you know, this is where I'd love to, you know, take hold
Just know.
of knowing what it is, or even sounding more confident. I'm
Right.
confident there's something out there.
Sure. Hey, we all are.
And I'm confident that it's all, I'm going to say Bigfoot related to all the other encounters I've heard. Footprints I found, rocks, the eyes, actually seeing something that looks like a chimpanzee out there,
Right.
which really
Yeah,
was
right.
weird.
That is weird.
But then getting basis to what it is, you know, my theories are all up in the air of exactly what it is.
I
Fair
also
enough.
I also have so many theories, but
Sure.
like it's just theories. Like you don't know if they're true, but they can be.
Oh yeah.
You never know.
Absolutely.
So science is based on theory.
Yeah, fair enough. Wow. So, you know, I think we've really covered a lot of interesting ground today, and I would honestly encourage anybody who's interested in the subject and interested, you know, in learning a little bit more about it and you guys' personal experience, to go out and Finding Jay when it's available, and that should be available June 1st.
June 1st,
Right.
coming up.
First,
All right.
And it will also available on Blu-ray June 1st and
Okay.
stream on Amazon
Amazon.
Prime Video on July 1st.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, great. So look for it there. And Jay and Blake, I cannot thank you guys enough. This has been really great. If you don't mind, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yes, I'll let you go first.
you can find me at the YouTube channel Original Blocks, spelled BLOX, and I do gaming content, and that's me.
And you can find me at Jay Bachochin on Facebook, or WPI Hunts the Truth on Facebook, or Finding Jay on Facebook, or my website, WPIHuntsTheTruth.com. And I'm very excited that Blake and I will be down in Farmington, Pennsylvania at the 2019 Bigfoot Camping Adventure. The first father and son. I mean, come here. It's going to be great. We're going to have a good time.
I bet. I
Hey,
bet.
thank you very much for having us on.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Blake.
You're welcome.
All right. And thank you. Talk to you soon.